was all set to do something completely different for the rant this week, but then a good friend of mine played this video for me, and almost immediately I changed my mind and said, oh, I gotta talk about this. Taylor Chapman. A name that can briefly be associated with the likes of Adolf Hitler and the Ku Klux Klan. For those of you who don't know who she is, over a week ago, she uploaded a video to YouTube of her escapade of walking into a Dunkin' Donuts establishment in the Fort Lauderdale area and basically losing her mind. Give you a brief synopsis. The night before, she went to Dunkin' Donuts, placed a quite sizable order, according to her, and they failed to give her a receipt for the purchase. And according to Dunkin' Donuts policy, which I have not verified, but I have no reason to doubt, if they fail to give you a receipt, they will basically buy your meal or pay for whatever it is, or compensate you in some matters in that respect. So apparently the person behind the counter didn't know if that fell into this category, so she asked her to come back the next day. Probably not the best course of action, she's probably thinking now, and by she I mean the woman behind the counter at the time taking the order. Taylor shows up the next day, phone camera in hand, immediately telling the employees that they're under surveillance and that she already has an attorney. Now keep in mind, this is the very next day. So at this point, the establishment hasn't even said that they're not going to honor their policy. And already this woman has Matlock in the wings waiting to dispute an issue which has not even occurred yet. Now, Taylor Chapman is an actress who does promotional videos. She works for, or I should say worked for, the Power Sales team, which is a business in internet marketing and lead generation, who recently put out a statement that because of her behavior online, they have disassociated themselves with her and she no longer works for them, even though she was a private contractor, which I think was the best move they could have made. Question I have is, should she be prosecuted for any of these actions? Maybe put on the Homeland Security watch list? I mean, she did threaten to blow up the establishment. And then you put that together with all the racial slurs that she tossed out to the female employee, which would then make the bombing of that establishment a hate crime. Just saying. And racial slurs? Here's a colorful phrase for you. Saying nigger. Still not sure what that means. I mean, I was at the beach this weekend. Does that count? Or is she referring to those who are from the Middle East? Because there's lots of sand there. I'm just not sure. I guess it's interchangeable. I've just never been called one before. Now tell me, how much respect do you have for Abid Adar? And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is the guy who was behind the counter the next day when Too Tightly Wound Taylor came back. Let me tell you, if that were me, well, let's just say that they would have had to pull that video from YouTube for displaying way too much violent content. And last but not least, what does her boyfriend, Sean Hosh, I guess is how you pronounce the last name, think of all of this? As I recall, Miss Chapman made mention numerous times about how they would spit and shit in the food she was ordering. But she didn't care because she was just going to give it to her boyfriend / fiancé anyway. Ain't love grand? If I'm Sean, I would seriously be reconsidering the relationship path we're going down. Well, I think I've vented enough for one day. Thank you all for tuning in to listen to me lose my mind over this whole outrageous incident, which reaffirms my belief that for every good person, there are at least 10 idiots out there. Don't forget to subscribe and leave the comments. Until the next time, bye for now.